Does that mean we're ready, Ellen?
Yeah.
Not yet. Oh, okay.
That kid's over there. Sorry about that.
Hey Scott, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you.
Mine should be. Oh, I was gonna say mine should be empty. Does that mean we're ready, Ellen?
Yeah, we should be good now.
Came in today. I just, yeah, that's great.
What is it? Oh, it's an employee appreciation. Yeah. I used it.
Oh, okay.
With my kids.
Okay, sounds good.
I was spring break. Mexico.
We should be good. Mayor, we should be good whenever you want to start.
About 10 pounds.
All right. Welcome to the April 12th North Logan City Council meeting. We will begin with Buzzy leading the pledge, after which Craig will say the prayer. Looks like we're all present. All right.
Will the audience please rise and repeat after me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this time to live in this country and to enjoy the freedoms in which we have. We ask that thou watch over government leaders and for those that serve to protect the country and the things which we enjoy. We pray we'll be able to make good decisions this night, that we'll be good neighbors. And we're grateful for those that work in our community and in our city. And say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right. We have a long agenda tonight, so we'll kind of do our best to move through it. I would entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Buzzy. Second by Emily. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. We have the March 1st, 2023 City Council meetings up for approval. I would entertain a motion on those.
So moved.
Motion by Buzzy, second by Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Alan, follow up on issues from previous meetings and review of action items.
Sorry, I'll go through these very fast because we have a lengthy agenda. So City Center will talk about this at the end of the meeting along with water. Updates on sewer. We'll be working on the infiltration plan to reduce infiltration. They're going around the city and doing that right now. They're also we're lining up the bond that we did receive, or the loan to the DEQ. Streets, they're basically tired right now, right as we're getting into maintenance season from all the plowing they've been doing, but they're putting together their road service treatment plan for the summer. Stormwater, we filled thousands of sandbags in-house. The residents, we've had several groups, from ward groups to different service groups, to other individuals. We've even had a lacrosse team come in and they've filled thousands of sandbags. We've taken some of those around the community to the areas where we know where flooding occurs. We met today and we actually received, Jordan filled out a grant with Sandy. We received 38,000 to put a pipe in underneath the highway as well. They'll help out with stormwater, which was a fantastic news for our stormwater system. Engineering, they're mainly working on the well, which is wrapping up right now. We had some hiccups in the installation, but it's actually turned out very well. And they'll probably start test pumping in the next couple of weeks on that well. So hats off to them for putting that together. Parks, they're just gearing up for the season. As soon as the snow melts. Normally, just so everyone knows, we start all of our sports on April 15th. And we have to keep people off the fields until April 15th. This year, we're probably looking more like May 1st or something along those lines. Just so the fields will last the entire season. Trails, we'll start working on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. We have a few grants and donations we're looking into regarding that. As we mentioned, soccer is in full force with recreation, and then they have their Princess Tea Party. One other event is the Soapbox Derby. That'll be this Saturday. That's put together jointly between our Parks and Rec Department and the ASME club, the Mechanical Engineering Club up at Utah State University that puts together the vast majority of that. That'll be near the mouth of Green Canyon this Saturday at noon. It's a free event, open to everyone. There'll be food trucks. It's a fantastic event. Just jumping down through, I'll go quickly through some of these. They're working on the cemetery secondary irrigation line right now to get water up there, and also finalizing some of the Veterans Memorial plans that they've been putting together. They look good, and we'll continue working on that. Community development will work on part of what they're working on tonight. And then Scott's waiting to hear back on the general plan, but they've got a pretty busy agenda coming up tomorrow night. Jumping down through here, treasurer, she's working with several of the HOAs. They've sent out one set of letters. They'll send out another one this next month. Business licensing, she's putting together packets for each of the businesses that come into the community. Right now, she hats up to Vicky. She streamlined several of the processes to help businesses both obtain a license and renew their license. So hats off to her for making that process a little bit more streamlined. And I'm just going to jump down through here because we'll talk about both library and the budget tonight. Police will have a presentation tonight as well, and their budget, and the fire department. They'll go over a few things at the end of this meeting. There's a few exciting things related to the extrication equipment, and some demonstrations for the city council, which I believe the chief has. We can go over that at the end of the meeting. But I jumped through that very quickly. Sorry. Are there any questions regarding the action items?
Ma'am, okay, thanks, Ellen. Then we'll move on to recognition of an exemplary staff member. Today's is Maddie White Mickelson. She was nominated by Jesse Howe. He says, "We are thrilled to give this award to Maddie, our incredible recreation coordinator, who's been instrumental in organizing and leading our soccer program. Maddie has faced many challenges with scheduling, weather, and doing so much with what little time she has. Her dedication and hard work have successfully made soccer much more enjoyable, not only for the community, but with the recreation staff by handling such a big program. All of her hard work will bring our community together and will foster a love of the game." I'll add, just personally, I ate lunch with Maddie today, and she's exceptional and very nearly convinced me to coach a soccer team, having never played soccer. It didn't quite work, but they continued the pressure even now. So anyway, we really appreciate Maddie, and if you'll just join me in giving her a hand of applause. Okay, moving on to our recognition of an exemplary police officer. We're lucky to have so many of our North Park police officers here tonight. It's great to have you guys here. And I'll just turn the time over to Chief Goodrich to kind of explain what we'll be doing tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. Police officers are often called on to handle emergencies, and they move from one call to the next call. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity that we have tonight to pause and to recognize the efforts of one of our officers in a life-saving event that he was involved in. I'd like to ask Officer Alan Robertson to come up. I'll just have you stand up here. So the life-saving medal may be awarded to an individual who saved or attempted to save a life under those circumstances where immediate action is necessary and the employee's conduct exceeds professional standards and expectations. On December 1st, 2022 at 2:15 p.m., dispatch received a call from the Elevation Rock Gym business wherein employees were reporting that a male subject was unconscious and that CPR had been started by bystanders that were on the scene. Officer Robertson responded with emergency lights and siren and arrived on scene at 2:17 p.m., a mere 2 minutes after being dispatched to the call. After Officer Robertson, along with several other officers from North Park Police, ran in and found Mr. Casey Anderson lying on his back. Bystanders told Officer Robertson that several rounds of CPR had been completed, but they could not feel a pulse and had stopped life-saving efforts. Officer Robertson knelt and resumed CPR compressions until medical personnel arrived on scene and began rendering aid to Mr. Anderson. Due to Officer Robertson's immediate action and quick thinking, Mr. Anderson received critical care during a rapidly disappearing window of time. Officer Robertson's quick response has given Mr. Anderson the opportunity to be with us today. It is my honor to present to Officer Alan Robertson the Life Saving Medal Award for his actions on December 1st of 2022. Thank you.
I'll just add quickly that I couldn't be prouder of Officer Robertson and his quick thinking. It's really something that you can hope for, but not expect from your officers, that they jump in where needed. And I know that Casey Anderson, I know that he's profoundly grateful to you. So thank you so much. Okay, we will move on to our action items tonight. We will, and you guys can be excused. This is not fun kid stuff. So, you're also welcome to stay. We will consider appointing a new member to the North Logan City Planning Commission. We recently had Jeff Coleman, a longtime member of the Planning Commission, retire, and we feel really fortunate to have Gavin Payne have agreed to fill that position. So, Gavin, do you mind just standing up, waving so that people know who you are? We really appreciate your willingness to serve. And Buzzy, you get credit for this one, for for alerting to us to a person that kind of flown under the radar. So I would—
That's what you get for coming to our house that night. So.
All right, I would entertain a motion to appoint Gavin Payne to the North Logan City Planning Commission.
So moved.
So
Second.
motion by Emily, second by Buzzy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous.
Good
Thanks.
luck. No, just kidding.
I understand it'll be a full agenda immediately for you. So, yeah.
Trial by
Yep.
fire.
All right. We'll move on to a presentation from CAPSA to recognize April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Thank you. My name's Maddie. I work in the Community Engagement Department at CAPSA, and I just have a quick message from CAPSA about April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This year for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we're focused on hope. We know that hope begins when we start by believing. Hope begins when survivors feel supported by their community. Hope happens when we connect survivors to CAPSA and our supporting agencies. CAPSA has several programs and services that work collaboratively to support survivors. This month, we want to highlight our outreach casework program. We have 6 outreach caseworkers and 4 outreach casework interns. Our caseworkers are often the first to have these hard and personal conversations with survivors of sexual assault and rape. During these conversations, our caseworkers go through a pamphlet with survivors to help them understand their feelings, their reactions, and their choices of resources, and help normalize all of it. We want to ensure that we help give power back to our survivors. In 2022, CAPSA assisted a total of 631 sexual assault clients. In order to best support our survivors, CAPSA has developed incredible relationships with law enforcement, investigators, and the hospital. CAPSA's caseworkers know that these systems and processes can help prepare individuals and empower them to make decisions to help them. This is a recent success story that highlights the value of these collaborations and CAPSA's efforts to support survivors of sexual assault. One of our caseworkers recently assisted a veteran who was making a report of a sexual assault that occurred while she was in the military. The military flew in investigators to meet with the client. The client requested her caseworker join her for the interview. The investigators were able to use the police department as a space to conduct the interview. After the interview, the investigators asked the caseworker to stay back for a minute and express their gratitude to the caseworker for being present. They told the caseworker that the work we do is life-changing. This collaboration, the collaboration we share with your community, is what it takes to give hope to survivors. Thank you. I also have a poster for the council. Do you want me to just leave that with Alan?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you all so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in. We're always happy to support CAPSA and its mission. So thank you for your time tonight. Okay, we'll move on to consider a resolution revoking the filing of eminent domain action for parcel number 04-054-0029. This, I believe the council is aware of this issue. We are in good faith removing this or revoking this resolution temporarily with the intention to refile once we've secured funding. So I would entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Buzzy, second by Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Consider a zoning text amendment to the subdivision and development standards for the RE5 acre zone. The proposal modifies various standards for the RE5 zone, including the base density calculation methodology under the density determinant subdivision option, as well as the lot dimension and setback standards. Additionally, the proposal makes various modifications to multiple sections of the land use and zoning code intended to add clarity, resolve duplications, and correct inconsistencies. I know that this has been a heavy lift, Scott, so if you don't mind just giving us a rundown.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, I mean, it's a bit of a mouthful on the agenda, but the proposal is a little bit more basic than as it sounds. What we're looking at is a small portion of the community up on the bench. It's an area that is zoned RE5, residential estate, 5-acre zone. And the parcels you see undeveloped kind of on that east bench there are the only parcels in town with this zoning classification. Kind of see it there pop up with that label of RE5, that polygon. What we're looking at back in the mid to late 2000 time period, there was a subdivision proposed in the city by the name of Bonneville Estates. And this is back when the bench was all zoned RE1, so 1-acre zoning. And that subdivision went through the process at the time, met the standards for the RE1 zoning that existed at the time. However, the plat, although it was approved, was never actually filed with the county. It was never recorded. So it didn't go forward and record those lots. We then had the recession, the housing bubble in the 2008-2009 period. So that subdivision just kind of fizzled out and didn't come to fruition. There's a couple of property owners in this area in that RE5 zone that were part of that original proposal for the Bonneville Trail subdivision. They did participate in some water infrastructure expansion in anticipation for that development, but obviously no development has occurred since. After that time period, the city reevaluated this area and understood that the stub you see at the south there, 2350 east, that stub was actually a master planned road heading further north. Those of you who know the topography in that area, it's a challenging area to put in a road, maintain a road in perpetuity. There's a lot of geology going on up there, a lot of topography to overcome. So the city realized, hey, this Bonneville, Trails subdivision probably wasn't a great idea. We're kind of glad it didn't go through as it was originally proposed. Let's look to potentially reduce the development potential on the bench. And that's actually a goal of the general plan for the city, is to reduce development potential in these sensitive areas of the city. So what was proposed by the city is that we reduce the master plan, the master transportation plan, by eliminating that 2300 east section that would run further to the north, meeting up with Meadowlark Lane. And we would work with those landowners to potentially downzone from RE1 to RE5, so they could still get a couple of lots, a couple of state lots on that property, but not to the same extent that RE1 would have allowed one lot per acre. So we worked with those property owners and went ahead and downzoned their property from RE1 to RE5. Now that action had an unintended consequence, and that was that when we go down to, when we downzone, which isn't a very common thing, but when we downzone, we reduce the number of development lots that can occur. But our intention, or the city's intention at the time, was to still allow a handful of lots, perhaps 6 or 7 on this southern portion of RE5. But what we didn't realize, and what these property owners didn't realize at the time, was in order to subdivide in this area and also in other areas of town, you have to take out the unbuildable area from your density calculation. So anywhere that's sensitive, as far as steep slopes, water features such as wetlands, drainage courses, though that area has to be reduced from your base density calculation. And that wasn't fully understood at the time by those in the city and also the owners of this property, which as the language was drafted, it actually reduced their development potential much more so than was anticipated. So the city recognized that after a developer had looked to potentially develop that land under the newly rezoned RE5. And we found that issue and we kind of looked and said, whoops, that wasn't intended. How can we rectify this? And the city has been looking at options to work in good faith with this landowner to reinstate those development rights. So what we've done is we've identified a way to grant back some of those development rights without actually changing the zoning. We didn't think going back to an RE1 zoning classification made sense. We wanted to keep it at RE5, but we wanted to allow the number of lots that was originally envisioned with that down zoning effort. So the solution was, let's look at the language in our subdivision ordinance to see if there's a way that we can specifically carve out an allowance for just this zoning classification RE5. To allow for the base density to be calculated off of the gross acreage as opposed to the net, where we would not reduce the acreage by the non-buildable area and the area in the rights of way. And that would allow for the number of lots that was originally intended. So we've crafted a text amendment. I don't know if you want to pull up the staff report, Alan.
Yeah.
But that text amendment makes that
This one?
insertion. Yep, that's the one. It makes that insertion into our subdivision ordinance. It carves out only for RE5 that we would allow for the density to be calculated slightly differently, knowing that this adjustment is targeted to just this zoning classification. It doesn't apply broadly to every zoning classification, just this one. And then we also did a couple of adjustments to the lot standards for setbacks and width to make sure that these lots can find a suitable location for a building footprint, where originally the setback in the RE5 zone was 50 feet. We've reduced that down to 30, just so we can find some suitable ground on these potential lots to locate a home site. And we made some code cleanup items. There's a lot of inconsistencies as we were looking at this language, and we took this opportunity to clean a few of those items up. Took this to Planning Commission. Planning Commission reviewed it, held a public hearing. We had a handful of residents, probably a dozen or so, who had concerns about the proposal. Specifically, the concerns were related to geology, topography, sensitive lands, and allowing for additional development up on that hillside than what would be allowed under today's existing language, even though that was not necessarily intentional. So those public comments are in the staff report. They're also in the record. If you guys would like to go through them, we can. But ultimately, the Planning Commission did provide a unanimous positive recommendation on this text amendment. Happy to go through any other details or explain anything in more specificity if you'd like.
I do have a couple questions for you, Scott. One, with respect to the geology report, is that something that in the event that the developer decides to develop the land, what kind of requirements are they going to have as it relates to studying whether, there's a potential for landslides and all of that?
Yeah. So none of those standards change from what is currently required. Every development, every subdivision that comes to the city has to submit those engineering reports, geotechnical analysis to verify where are potential issues and how do we mitigate against them for safe development. So that is still a requirement. This proposed text amendment does not negate any of those requirements. It does not entitle anybody to develop today. They would have to go through our subdivision process, which all of those requirements are still applicable.
Okay. Another question I had is I'm just curious historically. I know that Mahogany Ridge, Canyon Ridge, there's quite a bit of open space. When the city and developers were considering that, did they use that as part of their density determinant? So they did it wrong
When they did their density calculations, yeah. And I think that was part of the reason why we didn't discover this discrepancy in our code earlier, is because it had always been applied with, that non-buildable area being included in the density calculation, even though technically the letter of the law said we shouldn't.
Yeah.
So we found that language, and if we were to apply it, it would be more restrictive than intended.
Okay. And then just some of the other issues I know that had kind of been brought up in meetings even a year ago or more. The land is still subject to things like the grade of the road, the ingress egress, all of those things, those are still in place.
Correct.
We're just trying to remedy, kind of bring the agreement to what the meeting of the minds was.
Yeah, it's simply just adjusting the way that we calculate the density that could be allowed in this area if they're able to engineer their way out of all the constraints, which there are several. We don't deny that this is a challenging area to
Mhm.
develop. Those are still very applicable, and those are not being stricken from the requirements. It's simply just a way to calculate the density that we're adjusting.
Okay, council, do you have questions?
Yeah, I have, Scott, I'm trying to, so I was part of the commission. I think Craig and I both were when this went down a couple of years, I don't know how many years ago. But if I recall, when it was R1, there was substantial amount of homes that could have been there. I want to say it was above 30. I could be wrong.
It's like
Isn't
30
that flat like that?
Yeah.
Isn't there a picture?
I'll pull that up. It's in the
Yeah.
folder there. the
And while you're pulling
trail
that up,
subdivision.
and even with the changes to RE5 for calculation, is it less than half of that? Do you remember? I can't, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
it's
helpful.
a substantial reduction even still from what was originally.
Help me orient myself. Where's that 23?
Bottom.
On your bottom. Yeah,
It is, okay.
that's where the stub ends.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, so
I'm
something like
sorry.
15 on that. on
Just
that lower
looking at
section.
that makes me just a little bit sick.
Yeah.
That has so many houses.
Roadway heading north. Looks flat on paper, but it's not. And if it had been granted to the city in perpetuity for maintenance, it would have been a constant headache.
Can you outline for us where the current plat is? It's at RE5. What is that? Is the entire
Yeah, you can kind of see the line in the middle,
kind of,
kind of in this area. That's already, everything to the north is still already.
so that's still RE1. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Thank you.
I have several concerns with regards to this. I'm wondering about the drainage because you have two major drainages that will go across. And I've walked up there, hiked up there, and I am not quite sure how they're going to get the grading that they need to do for this. I'm concerned about the drainage. Water is still an issue. Ingress egress, as our mayor mentioned, has been for the last 20 years an issue for me personally, because I've seen developments where there's an emergency and we're not giving that community the ability to get out fast enough. So
Mhm.
for me, one more house up there doesn't make sense for the city to take that on. I like the idea that somebody wants to live up there. I see why it's beautiful. But for us to take the risk for it is probably not something I can. give my
I do want to
approval for.
clarify that when we're talking about changing this ordinance, all of those things, those are hurdles that the developer has to clear. So,
Valid concerns.
and I share those, Joni. Like I think the ingress egress and the grade are both two major concerns of mine. But I don't, that's frankly not our problem at this point.
Correct. Those are all valid concerns, and we're not saying that they aren't. What we're saying is they still have to design around all of those constraints, but they have property rights that if they can figure out how to design around them, they could bring them to fruition. This particular text amendment is just adjusting how we calculate the density, not necessarily how they're going to address all of those concerns, which they will have to do if they were to propose a development going forward.
Does this mean that we give up open space for them to be able to do this?
No, this is all privately held land. None of it is public open space.
I'm just kind of doing the math, looking at this. This is what now it's becoming clear to me. So that when you look at the upper section of that road that's flat going north to south, the property on that RE5 zoning was near the northernmost part of that. So that's where that calculation came on those lots. It was
Further
about
higher.
30. If I recall, the math you were doing on this with this new calculation still limits that to like something like 7 homes. Is that right?
6.
It's actually 6.
Yeah.
So potential at RE1 was 30. We went to RE5, which now gives them 3
Ish.
with the current
Maybe 2.
measurement. Our
Yeah.
measurement now with the new calculation might give them 6, but if it works out right,
If they
that's
can
the-
figure out where to put lots and buildable areas that aren't in the sensitive areas, then perhaps, no.
okay. So
'Cause I'm assuming with the drainage, just sorry,
Yeah.
Buzzy,
No,
but
you're
to
good.
just tack on. That drainage, like so can you flip to
Sorry.
the proposed, the other ones?
The zoning map.
Yeah, well, no,
There is another exhibit in
I'm
there, but
looking at it, but
this
that one,
this is not proposed. I want to be clear. This is just a super hypothetical, rough sketch, not proposed.
but they couldn't, I mean, the drainage would have to be preserved. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, they couldn't put a home site in the drainage. They'd have to engineer around it and find a way to pull driveways through.
So a question that comes up, and sorry to interrupt, that's a very common question that comes up when we've had other recent development proposals. A lot of the development up here occurred in the nineties, early 2000s to mid 2000s. There are much more strict standards today. If someone were to come in and develop, we get asked that a lot. If people were to come in and develop today, there's a recent subdivision north of here, and they asked and they said, well, what about water? Valid concern, beyond valid. And I just told people simply, we do not have the water for that subdivision. That particular subdivision had over 100 lots in it. And we just said, no, we do not. There is no way we could ever provide this subdivision with water. So it nixed it on that account. And these are all steps that would happen during a developmental process. They asked about drainage ways. And we said, you cannot build at all in any way, shape, or form in the drainage ways. Geologic hazards, we would have to assess that with the geologist and see where they could build. So as Scott described, there are endless sensitive lands through this area. And this is a pure hypothetical drawing of what could happen. Ironically, though, with this layout right here, which I don't know if it would happen this way, if it were ever developed, again, they can't meet ingress egress right now regardless. It would actually reduce the slope of this road if it goes in, because they would have to start cutting into the hillside earlier. Another thing it does is it corrects the water situation as far as pressure goes. Those are two things that are positives on paper amidst a myriad of obstacles to have to develop this land. So just keep those things.
This
in mind.
text amendment just basically says that based on the amount of acreage that is up there, the way you calculate your density could be 6 instead of 2 or 3. That's all that this is really doing. They would still have to come to us with a proposal, show how that proposal meets all of our standards and keeps all the building footprints out of the sensitive areas, how the road meets grade, how the access has been made to the area, which currently doesn't exist, how the water gets conveyed to the area. Geotechnical analysis is done to verify that it's safe and there's, any anticipated hazards can be mitigated. All these things have to come before us in a subdivision proposal before anything could be approved. This is simply the text that governs how the density is calculated.
Emily, anything you want to add, having sat through the planning commission?
I mean, planning commission brought up some really good points. Teresa Tyre mentioned that we really need to look into legislative intent. And the intent was to allow them to build, I want to say 6 or 7
6 to
homes.
7.
Okay.
Mhm.
This allows us to fulfill that legislative intent while at the same time protecting us, because let's say the owners decide to sell the property, the person coming in next cannot just suddenly get 30 houses. At most that they can get is that 6. So I really feel like this is the best of kind of a not great situation, while at the same time, I mean, that's why we have the development process. So legislative intent is the most important thing to me in this situation.
Right.
Yeah, I can, speak to the history. That was the intent. It still falls on the property owner for their due diligence. I won't doubt that. But I think at the time we thought we were incorrect too in our calculations, to be quite honest. Just to be clear, this thing originally was 30 homes, right? And when the owners came to us and said we want to go to RE5, we jumped for joy. We knew it would take it down to 6. Then we found out later it would take it to 3. I think going at 6 is what we intended. Going at 6 is still far better than the 30. And we never have to look at a master plan road going across that slope. I think it's a fair compromise. I'll motion that we approve this change.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, so motion by Buzzy, second by Emily. Do we need to make findings of fact, or is this
This
just
is
the
legislative. So this is
Okay.
policy based. Yeah.
Okay.
This is broad deference.
So-
Regard.
Motion by Buzzy, second by Emily, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thanks for all your hard work on this, Scott.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to consider a resolution to remove instant runoff voting as a voting option in 2023. I'll give a little bit of background, but the county's not offering instant runoff voting, so we'd like to do it. It's not available. I don't know if we need to belabor this. So
I'll
I'd
go.
entertain a motion.
I want to
make
make a
a
motion that because of the county's part-time person, we have to cancel him. So
Wow.
It's actually a little bit more extensive. It's it's $16,000 more is what we have to spend.
To do.
To do the
Because of
traditional.
the
To do a
travel.
traditional.
Yeah, so this will be significantly more expensive and we did talk about perhaps going to a different county that is offering instant runoff. But the delay in that and likely the cost would be not as drastically different if we were to do that. So
Mayor, if we have some citizens who would like to, is there a push that they can do? Who should they be pushing maybe a little bit to potentially allow instant runoff voting in a future election?
the county, yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
like they should maybe
Yeah,
contact their county.
because they oversee the elections, so.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Okay, so I have a motion that I will rephrase for Roger to withdraw. Let's see. I don't, is that phrased correctly to remove instant runoff voting as a voting option in 2023?
Yes.
Okay, so motion by Roger,
Second.
second by Craig. Oh. Okay, and we will add to that motion, with your permission, Roger, to contract with the county to do traditional voting. Okay,
Sounds good, yeah.
all right, so all in favor?
I.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Next, we'll consider a resolution modifying the master fee schedule as it relates to bulk water permitting fees. I understand that we could call this the Peterson rule. Apparently, when you need to fill a pool in January, as one does, you often need to access a fire hydrant to get a lot of water at once. And this, I'll let you take it from there.
That's very true. That is, we won't call it the Peterson rule, but we could. No, really what it is we have a lot over the past few years, well, ever since we've been a city, with construction, people want water meters, bulk water meters. What they use them for is for, like, if you look out here, they use them for dust control, they use them for concrete mixing, they use them for compaction on roadways. And then also we have one for filling pools. So what this would be is when a construction companies come in and rent our water meter that goes on a fire hydrant, they're very expensive pieces of equipment because we have to have a backflow device. We have to have an accurate water meter on it because we have to return all of the water that's used. We have to document every drop so that we can do our report to the state. So those water meters are very expensive. So we do require a deposit. So that's what that first one, the construction water hydrant permit would be. These again would mostly only relate to large construction projects. So subdivision development, roadway construction, stuff like that. Stuff that's not done by us. So what they would do is they'd pay a $3,000 deposit, which would be returned when they return the water meter. And that's the cost of the meter. So that if someone broke it or returned it. So there's a fee of, if we find someone that's not connected correctly, it can cause big issues to our water system, water hammer, we can blow up water lines. And so there is a fee involved if we catch you without using it correctly. And then for pools, we have a huge demand on pool filling. During our water conservation times, we don't allow pool filling, but like the mayor said, in the off times, spring and fall, we do allow it. And it's a huge ordeal to filling up with your hose at your house. It takes a few days. And so we would allow them to rent a meter and then pay for the usage and go from there. Same with the bulk fill up. So what this has been is when a construction company needs to fill water into a truck and then they spray that on the roadway for compaction or dust control, we have them come to one station at the water shop, at the sewer shop. We fill up their tank and then they can go and apply it within the city. To do that, though, they have to have a city building permit or be working on something in the city. They can't take that water outside of our city. So again, that would only be during, if we have water restrictions in place, we would limit that or not allow it. So, yeah.
How easy is it to detect someone who has a non-permitted water connection?
On the record, it's very easy, but in reality, it's not very easy.
Okay, we will get you.
So how we found those in the past is when we have a construction company working on a project and they just tie into it. We'll find them with a hose connected, filling up a water truck, or using it just spraying off a roadway or something like that. We have issues with water hammer and contamination because there's no backflow device on the hydrant. And so we have found a lot of them over the past few years. We've issued quite a few fines. So we try to make it easier so that they don't do that again. So that's what this whole process is for, so that people will actually go through our process.
Is there, is that 2,500, is that sufficient to cover potential damage to it, or is there a chance
Yeah.
that that may exceed it?
Yeah, so with this, what we would do is we install the hydrant meter, we turn the hydrant on, they operate it off of the meter that's there. So they don't have as much potential to cause damage.
But I mean, on the non-permitted,
Yeah.
is
so they're not-
2,500 enough to account for like the potential damage?
So if we caught that, if they broke something, then we would charge them for that. damage
Okay.
they create.
Do we need to say that at all? I mean, I know that they are liable, but I think, I just am wondering if we say 2,500 per occurrence,
Plus
Plus.
damages.
and
Yeah,
any damages that exceeds that
Yeah.
amount.
We could probably, yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, in your motion, if you want to recommend that, we would just add that to the
That's
resolution.
what I would do. I think it just
That's
gives
a
you,
great
it's
idea.
explicit.
Usually these are involved, usually they're using the fire hydrant as an outlet.
Yes.
And a fire hydrant's gonna run you a lot more than $2,500.
Yeah, they're about,
They're
5
about
to
7
6
grand
thousand.
yeah, about 7-8 grand right now.
to get them put in.
Yeah.
And so I would say that plus
Okay.
Plus
damage.
damages.
No, that's a great idea. I
Okay.
like that.
Do we have another place, another ordinance that says defining fall and spring for filling up pools? There's enough
It's just part
pools.
of our water conservation plan. So
You
in
can-
the water
you could
conservation,
specify
it
that.
Calls out no pool filling, no washing your car in your front yard. And it calls out specifics on water usage.
Yeah,
And
okay.
filling your pool is one of those.
You may want to put in there, see this, I don't know. something like that. Maybe they.
Reference it.
Maybe.
And it's only during, yeah, so what we would do is when they came in for a permit, we have our water conservation notices on the walls, it's on our website. And so we just say, hey, it's August, we're in restriction, we can't do it, come back in October.
Mhm.
Or when they get the building permit, we can also give it to them at that time,
Okay.
so that you have to
So-
have a permit for a pool.
So your motion on those lines, you know what it would say, but basically any increased costs that are incurred by the city from damage. And then also to say in the resolution or in the actual fee structure, according to water conservation policies set by the city.
Okay. Okay.
Be good?
Does anyone want to adopt that motion from?
I'll take a swing at it.
Okay,
I propose that we approve the resolution of the master fee schedule as it relates to bulk water permitting fees with the addition of in all 3 sections where it says non-permitted water connection, $2,500 per occurrence plus damage that occurs to the city system.
are we saying plus damages that accrue in excess of that 2,500? I would say.
Yes,
So it's not 2,500 plus whatever it cost, but
2,500 plus the balance of the damage done to
Okay.
the system.
okay.
And
then-
also the consideration to the water conservation dates,
Water conservation policies.
the water conservation policy.
okay. Okay, motion by Craig,
Second,
second by Buzzy and Emily. Well done, by the way, Craig. All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to consider authorizing the signing of a mutual and interlocal agreement for Utah Public Works Emergency Management. Is that going to be you again, Jordan, or?
I can
Yeah,
just go over
okay.
this really shortly. Really quickly, what this is it's a mutual aid policy where if there's an emergency in any of the cities or the county in the valley or outside of the valley, anyone who's part of this, we agree that if we have the time or materials or resources that will provide aid to those adjoining cities. Likewise, the other cities that are part of this would provide aid to us. What this does is this basically formalizes what we're already doing. We already provide this. So for example, a few years ago, Nibley had the instance where a diesel spill occurred near a spring in their community. They had to flush their entire water system for days. And so our staff went out and helped them along with a lot of other agencies throughout the valley. We also provided personnel to flush their hydrants and then also oil absorbing booms and other things throughout their city. Likewise, though, a few years ago, we had a snowdrift that came across the canal and it was backing up the canal. And we did not have the means to remove that with our equipment. Logan came to our rescue. Logan came in with a track hoe and removed that entire ice dam and that snowdrift and cleared the canal for us. Those are kind of instances where we've already provided aid or someone's provided aid to us. This formalizes that and does not obligate us. We do not have to do those things, but we probably operate the same as what we do now. It also provides a mechanism for funding and reimbursement from FEMA if we're part of these types of formalized resolutions. So just so you know, that's what this is, what this does. It formalizes what we already do now, where we provide aid and we also receive aid from surrounding cities.
Okay,
And these are common. The light and power have them. EMS fire have them. The thing, and hopefully it states somewhere in this, you always have the reservation never to leave your own community without resources. If you can't fill the request because it leaves your community shorthanded, then you don't have to fill the request.
Yeah.
So you don't run a risk of leaving your community unprotected or without resources.
Yeah, basically it has a lot of statements where whenever possible.
Yeah.
If we're, yeah, exactly.
yeah, it says if they're capable of providing assistance. So that is in there.
And that's the first frequently asked question down below. People ask, does this obligate us to leave our city and go and help at the detriment of our employees? They say no.
Okay, all right, I would entertain a motion on that.
I'll make the motion that we authorize the signing of the mutual and local agreement with the Utah Public Works Emergency Management.
Okay, motion by Craig,
Second.
second by Buzzy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Next, consider an ordinance amending the Title 10A flood damage prevention. Alan, you got this one too?
I'll go over this. So without belaboring this too long, because you've already gone over this, about a month ago or 2 months ago, you adopted the updated or amended floodplain ordinance. It'd been about 20 years, 30 years since we'd updated this ordinance. We took the template from the state, we catered it to fit North Logan City, and then we adopted it. FEMA came back and they had a couple revisions that they wanted to recommend. One that we already had this automatic adoption. So as new floodplain maps come out, that we automatically adopt them, but they wanted the effective date of the first one, May 9th, 2023. So that's the change right there that you're seeing in that first paragraph. The second one was we nixed the variance procedures because in North Logan, I've seen one quasi variance in 15 years that the city council has ever granted. So I said, it's not likely that the city council is ever going to say, hey, let's allow a bunch of building inside of the floodplain as a variance. And that's basically what the language said. So I said, you're basically putting people at risk, and a variance in and of itself is arbitrary and capricious. So I said, you're opening us up to litigation. But they said you have to have a variance portion. So I drafted some language here and you can tell me whether you like it or not. FEMA already accepted this language as it's written. What it says is if there's a historical structure within the existing floodplain right now, you can modify that structure or update it, as long as you don't put people in danger or increase their flood potential. So it's a quasi variance, but it's not really a variance.
Yeah, I like that. It's for existing homes rather than never new construction.
You can put a new structure too. So if we put a pavilion in there or something else, we're not people in a habitable space inside of the floodplain.
Okay,
Okay.
any discussion or emotion on that?
Looks good to me, Alan. Nice writing.
Yeah, our new lawyer.
Well, I'll motion to approve an ordinance amending Title 10A flood damage prevention.
Okay, motion by Emily,
I'll second.
second by Joni, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Next, consider granting permission to the library to allow a single overnight stay at Elk Ridge Park for a contracted library program provider. James, you get two jobs tonight.
All right. Well, so this this vendor that wants to come and do this for us, they're called Dazzle Dogs, and they do a dog and trick show, catching frisbees and doing all sorts of fun things. And they've been coming and doing this for us for many years, since long before I got here. And they're good people. They're good, honest, trustworthy people. And this year, it's a bit of an unusual year because of everything that's happening out there. And so they didn't feel that it would be a really good environment for them or for their dogs to do the show here, or, well, it's just not a comfortable environment. And so we're trying to do the show up at Elk Ridge Park this year. Their dogs are not familiar with Elk Ridge Park. And so they've asked if they can park their camper there, take a day to get to know Elk Ridge Park, and that their dogs will perform a lot better if they have that opportunity to do that.
Okay, so this is a one-time, this isn't perpetual?
Yes, this is a one-time thing, and the night of June 27th.
Okay, and have we done this before, Alan?
Yes, there's been a few instances and our code is kind of, it used to be very formalized for this. And then we kind of scaled it back because we didn't want to encourage this. But the city council does have the allowance to grant an overnight stay. A lot of the time that we see this, you'll see them just stay there the entire night for other events. So we've had things like the Veterans Show with the Vietnam Memorial Wall, the replica wall, and a few other things where people have stayed overnight there. They're basically usually awake the whole night. But this would be kind of a unique occurrence where it'd be an overnight stay, but it would necessitate the city council authorizing that one night and then also letting the police so they don't come up and arrest the individual staying inside of the RV that night.
Okay, any questions or comments from the council?
No concerns for me. Well, not about this specifically, but sometimes it seems like that week there's a lot of fireworks that go on in that park, and sometimes Conservatives has their work party that night. So just a consideration.
Yeah,
I don't
can
have any
we
problem
check
with
on that? Like
Yeah.
just
To
to,
make sure that they're not.
I suspect the
on the
dogs would
same
not
night.
behave well around.
they're not the
those
same night? Okay.
fireworks. Okay.
What day of the week is that? Do you know?
I don't know.
I can flip through and look. I'm just curious if it's a weeknight.
Yeah, they'd like to
Looks like it's a
stay,
Tuesday.
Tuesday night.
they'd like to stay that night and then do the show the next morning.
Okay,
So
okay, I would entertain a motion on this either.
Is there a way to put that? I don't know if other people would want to reserve the park for something. Just sort of letting know that somebody's going to be there. I don't know. Okay, perfect.
And like a fireworks show would have to have a permit anyway, right? So we'd catch that.
Yes, they have
Yeah.
to come in a month or two in advance. We'd probably hear about that their exact day. But
Okay.
if James, if you could reach out to Mary and make sure that whole north end is reserved for the library.
absolutely.
Okay.
I move that we approve the. Well, I guess it's just
Dazzle
we
Dogs.
say yes to granting permission to the Dazzle Dog overnight stay at Elk Ridge Park.
I've been waiting for Dazzle to be an emotion
Dazzle Dog.
my whole time.
Honestly, it was nice to see dogs spelled with two Z's.
Like the Jets.
I did like that.
It's fun.
Okay, motion by Budsy,
Second.
second by Roger. Did you second that?
Yeah, I want to be the second on Dazzle.
Okay, sorry, Emily, I'm gonna give it to him.
Roger.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. All right, James, we'll get you next too for the library budget proposal for fiscal year 2024.
Okay. Well, every year, it's a little bit of a struggle to anticipate exactly what your questions will be, but hopefully I can touch on a few things and hopefully anticipate your questions, but I'll try not to freeze like a deer in the headlights this year and try.
Oh, we're gonna try to make you free.
I know. No,
Permission to treat the witnesses hostile, Alan?
Granted. Granted.
Oh, Buzzy has that power now.
Overruled.
well, so the library, we're a little bit different because we have revenue as well as expenses. And so there's a lot to go through. We have, of course, the dedicated property tax, which raises a little bit every year. Library fines, let's see. Our non-resident fee. Now, this is an interesting one. The non-resident fee, we're proposing $14,000. The Logan Public Library, my friends over there are telling me that they're expecting to probably finish in the late fall, something like that. And so I would anticipate that we will still keep getting those non-residents, non-North Logan residents coming over here and paying the fee, which is great for us.
Have you noticed that, James? Have you noticed an increase?
Oh, very much.
Okay.
We've noticed a dramatic increase in the last year.
When you say late fall, do you mean late fall of 2023?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, late fall, it could be later. Of course, there's no way to know. No way for me to know, I should say. And most of the other things are very similar to what we've had in years past. Our state grant that we get, it's called the acronym is the CLEF grant, CLEF, but it's usually roughly about $6,000. And then, of course, there's the Thorn Endowment for 170, and that has been consistent from year to year. Are there any questions about our revenue before I go on to expenses? Okay. Library wages. So this year, well, the fiscal year that we're in currently, we're trying very hard to make sure that we come in within budget. And so a few city councils ago, we asked for a revision to bring that to 319,650. And because that's, well, this year's just been a very interesting year. We've been doing a lot more programs. We have one more employee, our programming coordinator. We have a lot more programs, which means more staff have been involved with those programs. We've also been doing an incredible amount of fundraising, and which is also, it's something, fundraising, when people become librarians or join libraries as staff, they don't expect to have fundraising be a part of the job description. But working with the Friends of the Library, we've raised a little over 38,000, which I think is pretty good. But anyway, so that means more hours for our staff, and so we've adjusted that, and we're trying to kind of keep in line with that for the next year, and also plan for raises. We have three full-time employees, but one of them has chosen not to receive benefits from the city. And so that comes in at 97,000 for library benefits. Travel and training is a little bit more than it has been in the past for a few different reasons. And I came prepared with breakdowns if necessary, but for one thing, now that COVID-19, now that has passed, we would like to do more training, and we would like to send at least one full-time employee to the American Library Association conference, it's in a different place every year, but in June of 2024, it's going to be in San Diego. And so that is for the travel expenses for that. There's also we usually send about around 6 employees to the Utah Library Association conference every year. And there are fees for that as well, but that is local. Okay, let's see. Another one that might stand out is the library software maintenance. You'll notice that it's at 25,000, and it's considerably less than
That's a good direction, James.
It is, isn't it wonderful? It's less than it has been in years past, and the reason for that is that we are using some new library catalog software, and our library catalog keeps track of all the books that the library has, and all the checkouts, and it's really just a huge database, but making books searchable and all the other items in the library searchable, it's a complicated process.
So James, are you replacing in your existing system?
We already have.
Oh,
yeah. So we replaced our system last spring, or in the spring of 2022.
Okay, so it was last year.
Yeah. And so, but there were a lot of fees associated with that, with switching over to this new company. But now that we're established, our library catalog will only cost about $10,000 a year. And then the libraries have a lot of other software that we have as well. But yeah, it's a wonderful change. So that allows us to redistribute things. And yeah, it's great. Let me see.
James, while you're
Yeah.
kind of looking at that, so I know that you kind of face something that each department does with wages and benefits. I think it's difficult because you've got to take into consideration like withholdings and benefits in addition to wages and hourly. I know that Karen typically works with other departments. Have you spoken with her?
I have a few times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because she has like some sort of magical calculation I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this reflects
It
what?
does.
Okay,
It does.
great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. Any other questions before I think that roughly covers the main things that need to be covered. Our programs budget is a bit bigger than it has been in years past, but it's really just because we're doing so much more. So, okay,
I mean, I want to ask questions, but it's the right direction.
Yeah.
good.
I know,
Good.
James, I don't
Yeah.
like to ask you.
I like hearing that.
Way to
So,
replace that system. I mean, it's nice to see the trade-off is worth what was promised.
Yeah.
you know?
And, you know, that's a noticeable difference in how many programs that we're seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, the library's always doing something and that's awesome to see.
Yeah.
So great job on that and pass that along too.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions from the council? Okay.
I do have one question, and it's just because I saw the presentation you gave to the library board. The travel and training has gone down. Do you mind, just because I was there, do you mind explaining what the change is that?
Yeah. So when I presented to the library board, I was the number that I had for travel and training was for sending all 3 of our full-time staff.
Okay.
And now it's just for sending 1 full-time person. I just didn't feel comfortable with the allocation.
Okay.
I felt like we needed a little bit more in other places.
There was also one mention of sending more potential part-time staff to the state
Yeah,
conference. Is that still included?
that
in
is
this
still
budget?
included in
Okay,
this.
just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
that's
thanks,
my
James.
question.
Okay, we don't take action on these. We're just
So moved.
information.
okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot. And Linda, thank you too.
That's funny, right, Joni? Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to the police budget proposal.
Okay. We're grateful to come before you tonight and be able to present our budget for 2024. When I was hired as chief, I was really asked to focus on the budget and the fiscal responsibility that the department needed to show there. And so as we took the opportunity to start reviewing the budget, every category, every expense that we were doing, I wanted to start first with the savings that we've identified and been able to cut from this next budget coming up in 2024. If you look at the first one, our maintenance there, we're able to start cutting that down by $1,660. The fuel, again, I've talked a little bit about this before, but we were filling up at the commercial gas stations instead of the state pumps, which was an increase to us. We were paying more for that. And so as we made that change to only fill up at the state pumps, we're seeing that savings of almost $15,000 that we can cut off of our budget. Our telephone, this comes in our department issued phones. We were going through Verizon before, and as we started to look at what we were really paying for that, we ended up going with a different direction, a different cell phone altogether. And as a result of that, our savings are just over $7,000 for that. The patrol supplies, we've been able to cut about $1,000. Our computers, $2,300, and ones that we are identifying that we don't have to replace right now. The animal control supplies, we've cut again $5,140. And the biggest part of all this, I think, is our vehicle purchase and how we're handling our leases. As we came into that, it hadn't really been separated before with our admin vehicles, the chief vehicle, the lieutenant vehicle, the detectives' vehicles that they were driving, and a training vehicle. And in identifying those areas, we were able to do something different and how we're doing that. This ends up being about a $43,000 savings for us overall, reduction in our budget. And then in our firearms, ammo, tasers, and accessories, about an $8,000 reduction there. So overall, in this next budget, this 83,554 is what we've seen, what we've been able to reduce from next year's budget. These numbers are reflected in the next slide in our master budget draft. So as you go down there again, the biggest difference that we're seeing as far as increases come in the form of our benefits and wages. And then in some of the increases that we have no control over, that being the professional services, that being things like our uniforms that are going up anywhere from 10 to 15%. So as we went back to what we can really cut to try to offset those increases that we didn't have control over, we've been able to do that and handle that very well. As you look at the difference between 2023 and 2024, the percentage there, some of the things that are a big increase in our police benefits again, we're trying to do something to mirror what North Logan City is already doing as far as an HSA match. So that is in this year's budget as well. There are other things that we're seeing that are new. There was with our wellness program support for our officers. This was a new law that came out that said that we needed to provide some type of wellness support for our employees. And so this is a new item that has not been included in previous year's budgets. So anyway, these are things that we're seeing. So as you look at the total, well, again, one last thing that I wanted to point out real quick on our vehicle costs, if you could scroll down just a little bit. So for our vehicle costs, our lease budget amount was 111,952. And with the sale of the vehicles that we've done, we're able to offset that with the $50,000 income that brought back in. That made our total cost of our vehicles 61,952. So we've spent a lot of time and effort really trying to go through our budget and our main big ticket items, the vehicles, the just things like that we don't have control over really to make sure that we're using that money well. If you go to this next slide, this is the North Logan cost share. What we're seeing, I guess, the difference between 2023 of 1.853 to 1.93 is a difference of 77,024. So the actual increase is it's a 4% increase, but it's less than what we were able to cut out of our budget altogether through the savings we found. Again, a lot of those increases were things that we didn't have a lot of control over, but we're still trying to do our best in mitigating those. So that's what we're proposing this year. Do you have questions for me?
I just make one comment. I think you'll see through the years with the HSA, you actually see a savings from that. Because I think when employees can see that they make right, decisions. Do I go to the emergency room? Do I not? Do I, I think in the end, they see that roll over. And I think you'll see, and especially when they're healthier and you're paying for that. I think you'll get better insurance rates, or at least not go up as much because you can show that you have that health benefit. I mean, we've seen that where I've worked, and I think everyone's seeing it.
That is the goal. That's what we're trying to do, is make it a little bit better there. And hopefully we will see that reduction in our rates through that.
Yeah.
Chief, you might not know this, Alan, but do you know what the average percentage the department has asked for the last 4 or 5 years?
I will give you a fake number.
Yeah,
No,
give me your
it's,
best guess.
They kind of vary from department to.
No, so
department.
just the police department, the last 4 or 5 years on
police.
average.
Oh, this is considerably
Yeah.
less.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
They started at 40 last year
Yeah.
percent. So
They've averaged.
So what I'm saying is all these budgets tonight are looking really good.
yeah, and
It's
Chief,
not lower like the library's cheap.
I really do want to commend the chief though.
Yeah.
When we were interviewing for the chief position, this was a really big focus of ours, and you've just taken that and run with it, and really just commend you for that.
I remember your answer in that interview, and now it's reflected in true data.
So just to say hats off to the police department and chief especially for going through this, but if you're asking about dollar amounts, each department is different. They average like 3 to 5% increases across each department when they look through them. The police have averaged just a dollar amount, $200,000 increases per year for the last 5 years. So chief, this is phenomenal. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. That was important. I understood that assignment and it needed to happen. Alan, one last comment that I want to make, if we could go back to the main page, and I skipped over it, not realizing back up at the top there under our revenue. The COP grant for last year was one that I needed to make the council aware of. So this is the last year that funding, that revenue is coming in. So 2025 budget. Well, 2024, 2025 budget might be a little bit different there, but we do have our grant writer that's looking into trying to help offset that with opportunities there. But I just wanted to make sure that was made aware, I guess, or focused on a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I want to say too, with all of us, I think we're grateful for the eyes of the leaders that we have. So thank you. That's impressive. You can come do mine.
thank you. Appreciate it.
All
Oh,
right.
is that will be a new service they offer.
Yeah.
Taxes for general.
We'll help pay for that.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to facilities.
You're ready, it's a doozy. Alright, so yeah, I'm the Nathan Robinson, I'm the facilities guy, and basically facilities just covers building maintenance, also handle safety for the employees at North Logan City. So basically, so our revenue, my revenue, where it comes from is all the departments pay into it. And you know, I help out everyone because of that. One thing I also want to point out is the ULGT TAP safety program. That's one that's put on by our insurance, and because we adhere to that, it's a training and reward type of a program that they do, and we receive money from that as well. That goes to just miscellaneous safety items and training for the employees. Let's see. Overall, I mean, the budget's pretty much the same as last year. Not too many changes have been made, and our overall on it is that we're pretty much flat. Any questions that you guys have at all?
Love to see it.
It's pretty. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
One point of clarification for the facilities department, just so everyone knows, he's mentioned other departments do pay into this. Some enterprise accounts like water, sewer, stormwater, and some of the general fund items, library, they pay into Dathan. So he owes them all a thanks. But at the same token, he provides service to all those different departments. This budget used to be tied on what was, I would call it an automatic transfer method, where when individuals, so here's a good example. When the library put on a new roof one year on this building, those percentages were automatically, each different department had a certain percentage in the facility department. It automatically went to them. So they all had to pay a portion of that library roof. And they weren't anticipating that at all. It just came right out of their budgets. So it was a really horrible way to do a budget, to say the least. It was really like, it was damaging to like the police department, library, the enterprise accounts. So now it's a fixed percentage. So at the beginning of the year, that's why he does his budget. One of the last budgets is because we set all the other department budgets. He sets his budget and it's basically fixed at that point. Now, if he has to come in and request more or do something else, that can always happen throughout the year. But basically, he has to anticipate some of the repair costs throughout each of the facilities. And likewise, all those different departments do. One other thing to applaud Dathan on going through here, our insurance costs, not our medical insurance, but like our facility insurance, our workers' comp insurance, and a few other things across all personnel that come out of Dathan's department. Several years ago, our EMOD score, fancy way of saying that is our score for how well we're doing with workers' comp claims or claims of citizens against the city as it relates to like injuries. 1 is average. So if you have the score of 1, 1.4 is about as bad as you can get, or 1.5. They usually, you can't go above a 1.5. We were to what, like a 1.45, like a year before Dathan started. We're hovering around 0.69 right now. You can't go below 0.6. That's the lowest that the trust has. So hats off to Dathan. I'll probably creep up a little bit. That we always have a few injuries here and there, but that speaks volumes to Dathan. That saves us tens of thousands of dollars a year in our insurance costs. So thank you, Dathan, for all
Yeah,
that you've
great
done.
job, Jason.
Round of applause.
Yeah, I'll buy into that.
We make some shirts that say so many days without an accident. Get one.
Yeah, we'll just put a
The
blackboard
whole chalkboard.
right to your.
Jinx you, I swear.
Oh.
Budget, so.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to general government executive, administrative, public works, non-departmental, ARPA, general taxes and fees. Alan, that's you.
Yeah, I'll jump to this. Sorry, we lumped too many things into this, but if you look at this, it's basically several of these departments. If you look at general revenue coming in, we're talking property taxes, sales tax, energy sales and use tax. That's basically a tax on electricity and gas within the community. Basically our tax, we look at property tax. I'm not going to go at length into property taxes. We do that every year when we do a truth in taxation process. This year, in this budget, we're not proposing a increase. What that means is no percentage increase. However, you keep in mind that we didn't do property tax increase about 15 years, and you don't want to fall far behind inflation. The only way we would receive an increase, which is built into this, and we will have a minor increase this year, is just due to new businesses or people moving into the community. That's the only growth built into this property tax increase that you're seeing here. No increase whatsoever besides that. And so the city's portion will remain the same. Sales tax, we average about a $100,000 to $200,000 increase each year. Just natural growth that comes in, new businesses that come in. We do have a lot of new businesses, and taxing policies kind of affect that as we see businesses morph into more of a home-based business and other things, Amazon sales-based business. So that's how you see a lot of growth in our community. The rest of these are franchise fees. We've talked about that. Energy sales and use, that's just based off of a small percentage of each business and home and what they pay into their energy bill.
Quick question on sales tax. Have you seen a dip just because with Winco and Costco now in Logan?
No.
I know that I know Walmart used to get the report, but are we seeing about the same kind of from there?
Yeah, we see kind of a linear increase each year. It's probably, I'd say it's slightly dipped as far as the increase amount,
Mhm.
how high we're going up. We're not increasing exponential, but it's kind of a linear increase each year. Not drastic though. Just so you know.
I always wonder how that affect,
Yeah, we're pretty diversified as far as a lot of things coming in other than Walmart. Walmart is a massive contributor to our sales tax, and the support businesses around Walmart basically come in. So that's a really good question, Roger. And then going through the rest of these, you see intergovernmental, some other court fines and other things that come into the city. But that's basically your general revenue. That's where it comes from. When I say general, that's general fund revenue. Jumping over to general expenses. This is what this top line, these are the most important expenses in the city. These top 10, 11 items. Last year, we did implement a policy where if the city staff are receiving increases, because the city council didn't have an automated method. But if the city staff is receiving a percentage increase, so would the city council, up to only a 4 or 5% increase, I think is what is built in there. They can't go above that unless you vote that through.
Oh, yes, it can, Alan.
Yeah, sure. If you and I, anywho, that's kind of what's built in there. Now, it's such a small portion that a small percentage increase is not a lot, but at least it's something compared to what it used to be. Jumping down through your executive office, that is the most important employee, but we won't go over that. Along with Marie and some part-time individuals. Jumping down through admin expenses, that's a lot of the office staff, and non-departmental also come out of both of those. So you go through these departments, we're not proposing a lot of changes. That's why I'm kind of skimming over this. Nothing to see here as far as like anything major increase or decrease. That's basically what we have. As you go down through your court, here's our expenses for court. You saw some revenue on the other line. But court is about a net loss of about $110,000 a year, between 80 and 110,000 for the city. As far as the court costs, police, we've already gone over that. Public Works, these aren't very important, but again, that's a couple employees that come out of that line. And then transfer funds through that. That's general fund revenue and general fund expense. They're all kind of smaller lumped items. Mainly office personnel is what you're looking at. And then general revenue is mainly just taxation and things that come in through what are true taxes and fees. When you look at that.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to, do we need to move into the RDR?
Yes.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to, what do we, I don't know,
Adjourn, right? Or no?
adjourn, or do we?
Adjourn and
Just
move
move
into.
into
I can't
RDA.
remember.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to move into the North Logan City Redevelopment Agency Board.
So moved.
Second.
Was that Buzzy?
Yep.
Okay, motion by Buzzy, second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do we need to adopt an agenda?
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain that motion.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Okay, motion by Emily. Second by Joni, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Let's see. Let's discuss that budget then.
So jumping into this, is everyone familiar with the RDA concept? It's basically parcels that we work with the county, school district, they're the property taxing entities to create an RDA, a redevelopment agency for the city. These are funds where if you take, let's say, a portion of vacant land and it's designated and it's part of this process, very lengthy, very detailed, the percentages, everything else. But what it is that if a business comes in on any one of these parcels and it increases the property taxes or the value of that property, then a portion of that increase, the increment, comes to North Logan City to the redevelopment agency, and then you allocate it for specific things. Now, you know that we went through a very lengthy process this past year to approve his 4-year process to approve a new community reinvestment area. That's just the fancy new acronym for an RDA. Now, we do not have any parcels activated yet. And what that means is we don't have a parcel yet that has started receiving funds through that new CRA. But if a business does come in any of those parcels that we've designated, it would start accruing funds. And those funds can only be used for specific items. Not as restricted as an impact fee, but close to it. It has to be used for specific areas for the CRA and just for basically developmental costs or reimbursements for businesses coming in. Kind of an incentive strategy is what this is all built on to bring in business.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion move to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Craig, second by Buzzy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. And does that mean we automatically are in city council again?
Make
Or
a
do we have
motion
to
that we
go
come
back
back
in?
into city council.
You
Okay.
never adjourned from city council, so you're probably
Okay.
still in.
So we are back as city councilors. Let's go on to discussion regarding spring cleanup dates at Elk Ridge Park, May 5th and 6th. Alan, I can take this one if you don't mind. Logan decided not to do the roll-off dumpsters any longer this year. We kind of went over a few options for this year and then in continuing. The main problem that we have with green waste, that bulk green waste, is that we get a lot of residents that come from Logan City and from Hyde Park, and also some commercial entities that use our roll-off bins. So those get filled very quickly. And as we're looking forward to the future with waste management, they're going to be charging us a per haul fee in addition to tonnage on those. And so it gets very expensive, and we're ultimately subsidizing other communities in that. Or we can provide an employee that their full-time job is to make sure no one but North Logan residents dump in those. So what we've decided to do this year is to designate those 2 days where we're going to rent some green waste and then also just regular dumpsters for our residents and just call it a spring cleanup day. So Alan, did I miss anything on that?
No, that's just in lieu of the dumpsters having them, which people have become accustomed to. So we'll have to do a lot of citywide notifications, parliament messages, but let them know that this is going to be kind of a day of service, a spring cleanup in lieu of having those dumpsters at our park, which has been a resource for the citizenry for a long time. But yeah, the entire year. The only other thing is that we need to work out with Logan and figure out this exact charge. Because I've had a few citizens reach out. There was in 2020, there was a $1. Logan brought up the shortfall as far as running these bins throughout the county, and they didn't want to provide the bins in the parks and in each city. But the cities came back and they said, what if we work out a compromise? And Logan's compromise was to charge everyone a $1 increase on their garbage bill to provide those dumpsters in each park. Now that they are not providing those, we need to reimburse the amount that they've agreed to, which would be January through April so far. So 4 months of that $1 fee. Not an astronomical amount, but there's a principle behind this. And so when we talked with Logan, when they set up the fee, they said that 50% of that, so the 50 cents of that fee went to providing the dumpsters in each park. 50 cents went to processing of the green waste. But that wasn't indicated to any of the cities. So now we have to basically talk with them and figure that out. The county's talking with them as well. Other cities are talking with Logan. But when we've told our citizenry that we need to start reimbursing those $1 for those $1 amount fees for January through April for a service that they did not receive, they want to reimburse 50 cents a month. And that's going to create an issue in principle as far as dollar amount, in my opinion.
So we'll work on that, but
I guess a couple of questions logistically, maybe it's still being worked out. So on those 2 days, are we gonna have somebody that somehow says I'm a North Logan resident? Do they have to like bring their little newsletter? I mean, how are they policing that? I mean, I guess.
We'll probably have employees there for the vast majority of the day for those 2 days. I mean, they spend hours a day during the summer just cleaning up, so Logan will actually come and dump. So
driver's licenses, utility bills,
Yeah.
right?
The only other thing I would say too is that now that the dumpsters will be gone after that date, I don't know if there's some way of. I know I'm made fun of it because I don't notice signs, but there's got to be some way with caution tape, maybe investing now in signage, where those dumpsters used to be, maybe some signs leading in. There's no longer a dump thing here because you'll have illegal dumping after, even though cameras there.
yeah, we'll have a camera, but we'll remove the site completely. So there won't be.
Yeah, and I still think you need signs and caution tape because people.
Yeah.
And I think that can be prepared now. So literally May 7th.
Just so everyone here knows though, just signs, caution tape are all fine and dandy. When we've put signs out before, they will literally bury them in a pyramid of
I know.
grass beds. So these signs and the harsh language don't really have an.
Well, yeah, but even a sign that says this will not be, I mean, I think some people think that they're going to come back and they don't read the newsletter. They don't look at the communication. I mean, I don't know. And even if we have to take a bulldozer and I know because it goes up and then drops down, even if you bulldoze that to flat with the sign, no illegal dumping, no longer here. I don't know. I think you have to do
They have
something.
that smile, you're on camera.
That doesn't do any good. I dump with a smile on camera.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
no,
It's like,
Yeah.
is there a fee associated with illegal dumping? And I don't know if this is something we could do, but could we, I don't know, find the people who are doing it wrong?
It's technically littering, which was on the sign. It's just been knocked down to the ground before.
Okay.
But maybe a better sign.
Maybe at the front of the road.
Maybe one of those persons that dances with the sign. Is that what you're looking for, Roger?
A twirling sign.
Something for at least my birthday's May 8th and I'm 50. So I can go out there with a sign. I mean, I'm like,
But we might have to literally work with the police department. And in the past, when we've tried to find people, they haven't come out. And so with our chief and his staff and their great job that they've been doing, I think they'll come out and actually enforce this one. But we'll put a sign out there that says it's technically littering if you do dump on this ground. And good luck. The only times we have to worry about it is when the staff aren't there, which is throughout the day here and there, but they'll let them know if they're dumping out there.
I have a feeling it's gonna go to the gravel pit by us.
Yeah, it'll go, that's the
Yeah.
fear, that's the valid fear. It'll
That's
go
where they
along the
go.
ditches throughout the entire county. It'll go in the ground, it'll go all over. And the people will burn it as well illegally, so. Yeah, that's the. that's
It's
the
not
effect.
great, but we're just kind of having to work with what we have. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, let's move on to updates regarding North Logan water capital improvement projects.
Look, there's a lot of water up there. A lot. So just real quick, while he's pulling it up, well, 5 has been drilled. It is completed.
You tell me we don't need it anymore.
Shut it. We need it, man. Just as an update. So Green Canyon, we get our water out of Water Canyon. We're experiencing some water coming out of the canyon. We're dealing with that. We've been dealing with that all day and all night, but our water system coming into the treatment plant is coming in at 1 gallon a minute. So none of the water is moving up high. So just an FYI.
Still solid.
Yeah, still rock. Nothing's coming down. Just the low elevation stuff's coming off. Nothing's melting up top. But well 5, it's been drilled. When they did the first initial log, everything looks really good. It looks like it's going to produce very similarly to well 4, if not a little bit better. We added more screens to this one than well 4, so we have a higher capacity. They'll come in the next week to do some pump tests on it so that we can get a nail down in gallons per minute on that well. The pump house is going to begin construction as soon as they're done with that pumping test. We've already ordered a lot of the materials for that building. The block, cement work, and everything's ready to go. The water updates. We're going to be redoing a lot of studies in the next coming few months, proofing some water models, updating water master plans, budget analyses, and a bunch of other stuff like that, just to make sure we're all headed in the right direction and to double check ourselves on everything we're doing as we're going in for more and more money so that we're making the right decisions that don't hamstring us in the future. USDA, we're altering the application currently, working with USDA to get that finalized and submitted. And we'll be preparing for the Division of Drinking Water application to submit here in the next couple weeks, month or so. So
Maybe one question. I remember when we were talking about digging well 5. There was concern, like, are you tapping into like the same aquifer for it? I know we went
Right.
deeper. Are we really not going to know if we're really taking from the same source until you have a year's? I mean,
So
are you noticing anything? Because it's not operational, but
right.
how do you test that? Because
So
that's
what they'll
what
do is we have all of our SCADA, all of our data collection system in well 4. And it measures all the water levels, measures what's in there. And so as we turn on well 5, we watch the drawdown in well 4 to see how it's impacted. And so during the initials, couple weeks, well, last week, as we were cleaning out the well, they pump out all the sediments and clean it up. We were pumping about 600 gallons a minute and it had 0 effect on well 4. When they come in and proof it and push about 3,000 gallons a minute out, we'll see where it goes. But the geologists and the hydrologists anticipate little to no impact on it.
Wow.
Just
That's
because
awesome.
it is so much deeper, different rock layers.
What's the
And-
difference in depth between the two?
Well 4 is finished at just shy of
500 to 600, 500, isn't it?
No, the last screen is like, we found is just shy of 400. Is the
Oh.
last screen. This one, we have screens down to 750.
Okay,
So
so
it's
you're
a
like
significantly
350 below.
Almost double.
deeper. So it does, yeah. Well 4, just for your, well 4 is an awesome well. We get
Yeah, I remember that.
2,500 gallons a minute. It's fantastic well. So we're hoping to.
So you want well 5 to be operating, sorry, the gallons per minute, I don't know what's normal, so what do you want it to be operating at? Just
Close
like,
to that.
okay,
2,500.
2,500?
Yeah, that's a strong well for that area and what size of pipe we put in the ground. So that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah, our wells range between like 700 gallons per minute, are older.
45.
40, yeah, 450 gallons per minute up there. 45 is one of our, we call it a duster. A well that they drilled the 800 feet up on the bench, that's what we get out of it.
Hmm.
Based off of the geologist. Jackswell runs, it's
So
much higher.
Is it?
Yeah, Jack's during the summer when we run it just right around like 2,100. And that's
Really?
an on-demand well. So it's,
Just costs more
Fluctuates.
electricity to pump it where we need it.
so yeah. And it's warm with water. It's different. It's a whole different series, but that's a very good well as well.
Yeah, it's a good one.
We like that one.
Hey, not to put you on the spot, what were those finished costs for that well?
It was 1.68.
Okay.
So wells are very expensive.
Yeah.
We've talked to other communities. We were pretty lucky to get in when we did. There's been a lot of people that had nobody bid on their wells. There's been a lot of people, Utah State was trying to get one out on a research farm and they told them come back in a couple of years. So yeah, well, prices have gone up drastically and are very hard to get right now. So
Yeah, actually, yeah, Craig brings up a good point. What's next on the tank?
so the tank, that's what we're doing with the USDA grant.
Oh, that's right.
We're
Sorry.
finalizing the design and finalizing, the distribution lines. So that's what we're working with USDA, and then Division of Drinking Water will work on distributing that water from that tank across the bench. So we're just going to split up the application for USDA because it was so large. We'll start to just come at them in different sections.
So it might be you. That's a little ways out, it sounds like.
Yeah. So we're hoping to have construction on it this fall. It's still our game plan.
Sorry, I meant the USDA approval. So that's
Yeah, still
being pushed to.
a few more weeks, maybe a month. It's not a very fast process.
Gotcha.
Federal government money, so it's a little trickier.
Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, updates on the Civic Center. Not a lot to
Coming
say.
along.
No, just a very quick update on that. As you look out here, you can see the updates. You can see the footing and foundation have gone in, underground plumbing, and now the foundation walls were being poured, a portion of them today. So you'll see a building start coming up out of the ground. The next steps after that are obviously pour the entire floor and then start putting the structural block. So they'll put block down that looks like actual brick on the outside, but it's block that they build the structure out of. So that's what you'll see in the next month when that block arrives. They'll start putting that down.
What are we
And
doing?
we're working on designs for the community center, just getting some rough kind of modifications and different options for that.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Chief Hannig, we'll let you go first. You've been very patient. Unlike Scott Perks. Just kidding.
Oh,
We're getting bored up here, Scott. Sorry.
Accommodations on speeding up the meeting, faster than
Thank
it's
you.
supposed to be. So thank you. Just a quick couple things. You should have received your monthly report for last month. And then I know Jelena's still working on the quarterly report. The quarter was pretty flat compared to last year. However, April's up significantly already. So as I looked at that, well, looks like we're about 7% above. So we've made up for all that call volume decrease the last 2 months. Just one thing that I really wanted to get your input. We received the grant, we've seen the funding for the extrication equipment. We put that into service. However, we want to do a demonstration for the council. So we're going to have a car delivered to Station 120 so that you guys can come and use the tools and
we don't
Buzzy.
turn the lights on the
We
truck.
can't let Buzzy hold
We
that.
can't let Buzzy
Come on,
fly.
Chief.
Dan for life.
Chief.
We might have to have some
I have
supervision.
been banned from running the
Turn his
lights.
finger off.
Can I run the
Okay.
lights?
Okay.
Just let me run the lights. That's all.
So we picked a couple dates next month. We'd like to do it maybe on an evening you're already having council, like a little bit before, maybe at 5, on either the 3rd or the 17th. I know
Oh, my
Craig's out of
goodness.
town, but he doesn't count. So since he probably
It's always
already,
out of town.
17th, but we could sure do it on the
17th and
Third.
the 3rd or the 17th next month in
it
May.
does not matter. Sign me up. I
So
will
you
be
tell
there.
me which one
I'm
is
ready to
you
do it.
prefer.
Let's just
I'll
do
make sure.
the 3rd unless
Okay,
anyone has a conflict with that. Let's just plan on
Like
it.
a hat I can wear, like a.
we'll have a helmet, we'll have a jacket, we'll have all that. I know.
Pole I can get down.
Oh my
No.
gosh.
Now, we will have one at the news station and the progress is, we finally seen a break in the weather, so construction is really moving over there now. So if you drive by first east, second west, you'll start to see the walls up and things starting to move along, hopefully framing on some of.
What's the estimate on that being done?
So it was supposed to be September. With that, we're toward the late end of October now. And hopefully we don't have any more slowdowns and that will keep that date at the end of October. So
Great.
I was gonna ask you, chief, and it's not that critical, but I assume, so what's plans with the old one? 'Cause
I
obviously
believe
they're
the
gonna keep
city's
having
gonna
to
sell it,
Just gonna sell it
right?
off.
I think they're just gonna sell it. So,
That's what I'd heard.
yeah. Any other questions for me?
No,
Cool.
thanks a
Okay,
bunch.
we'll plan on the 3rd.
Okay.
I'll send something out. to you.
Extrication demo.
All
Should I
right,
say
Chief
that?
Goodrich.
I'd hurry for you. First off, I think we should ask Chief Pennig if we could shoot through the windshield there for training for our guys, if we're gonna cut it up afterwards.
Yes.
Training. We've had, like I said, it's been a pretty busy couple of weeks here. Wanted to review just real quick. We had the Green Canyon High School hoax, the active shooter hoax that came in. Our Officer Robertson, in fact, was one of two on scene there. First on scene. So our guys are treating things like that, like they're real. And then, of course, you saw in the news with the Walmart bomb threat. That was pretty real. And we appreciate the help from fire and from everybody that responded there on that. It ended up being about a 3-hour ordeal that took us to clear that and make sure everybody was safe. And as soon as we put that out on the media, it was about 20 minutes that we found who our people were. So incredible support for the community, and we appreciate that. Like I said, other than that, we're staying busy. We're trying to keep up with the calls that are coming in and keep everything going forward.
Okay,
you.
great. Thanks a bunch, Chief. Okay, Scott.
I just want to give you guys just a heads up on what's coming up on the planning commission. So we do have a public hearing tomorrow to talk about our connectivity language, extending of master plan roads between subdivisions and to connect the dots from one end of a mega block to the next. We also have a concept plan for a subdivision on our agenda tomorrow. It's called Linden Lane on the corner of 12th East and 3100 North. 8 lots. So it's right at that intersection, kind of splits between where 3100 North went through and connected into 12th. So that'll be coming up. It'll be on your agenda probably next month sometime, but that's about it.
Okay, thank
Did
you.
we- So, sorry, Scott, on that, where that subdivision, I was gonna ask you about this, I'll ask now, but that Linden Lane subdivision, is all of that North Logan City, isn't that, the north side is Hyde Park, correct?
It's actually North Logan for the time being. There is a pre-development agreement per our annexation agreement with Hyde Park to entitle that northern portion, but then it will be annexed into Hyde Park after the subdivision is recorded.
So where does this, is it on, which plat is it?
It's north and south of 3100 North, just west of 12th East.
Okay,
Parcel ending in 0022.
East of the canal.
East of the canal. Yep. So just that triangular upside down.
Sorry, my
sliver.
cursor's not showing up.
Well,
I'll
I just-
make it a different cursor. This, just so you know, yes,
Oh,
that parcel there, 0022. It'll be fully developed in North Logan. You approved an agreement
That's right.
several months
Oh, yeah.
ago regarding this. It's very odd. But then once 3100 North goes through, it's supposed to split. The north half is supposed to be Hyde Park. The
Park.
south half is North Logan. Ironically, everyone thought we would fight over whose is whose. It was more just pretty easy to figure it out. It's based off of like who can sewer what. And that's how the original agreement came up. And hats off to the original founders of North Logan, whoever put this agreement together 30 years ago, because they were pretty close. We've had to alter it in a few areas, but it was based off of really low points of where people could sewer, and 3100 North is in alignment. It's a low point between Hyde Park and North Logan.
okay.
And so that's basically what it's
Probably
based
means
off
we
of.
ought to reconsider the stop signs there, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But not permanently, just like seasonally.
Seasonally.
Maybe with the moon.
Maybe digital.
Buzzy doesn't have a soapbox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just keep people on their toes.
Thank you.
You're always on your toes. You're gonna drive defensively.
that's
so.
true.
So that's on the horizon.
When they, I guess, if it gets approved and it goes through, then are they gonna plat it that it's Hyde Park? I mean, I think
No,
you need to
it'll-
tell people, well,
It'll be platted in, as far as, it'll be entitled and platted in North Logan City, but the agreement actually stipulates that they cannot pull a building permit until they annex that portion into Hyde Park.
Okay.
So they'll plat it, they'll put the infrastructure in, it'll be entitled fully under North Logan City. But they can't actually build until that next paperwork process is done. So it's got to be annexed back over to Hyde Park.
That's
Okay.
that'll be a fun one to see.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Jordan, sure. He aced you out, Scott. You gotta be ready.
Two things real quick. Flooding's starting to become an issue. We have a few areas of concern that we're monitoring around the clock. We do have a ton of sandbags. We had a bunch of people come fill over the last couple of days. So if you know anybody that needs any, encourage them to come to the shops, the residents in North Logan to come to the shops. We have a lot outside pre-filled, ready to go. One other thing is we're working on receiving a grant through the state of Utah. Craig was there at a meeting today. We're looking at piping across 3100 North. There's a little pond right here. And it collects all 100 North and then 2 canals above it, and 3 canals above it.
Oof.
So it gets all the water from the upper canal, middle canal, and the twin ditch. And we can relieve all those canals through this pond, but there's an 8-inch line under the road. And so when we send water there, it ends up in our sewer lift station and in Main Street. And so with this grant, we're looking to put a bigger line under the road and work with Hyde Park on getting that line across so we don't have those issues. So
Go ahead.
there you go.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. Scott,
On Friday, I'm gonna send off the payment form for the 3 hotel rooms for the Utah League. And just make sure that you get a copy of that to take down with you, just in case they misplace it. Don't forget, the next city council is when you need to pass the fiscal year 2024 draft budget. And since we just passed that resolution tonight, candidate filing period will be June 1st through the 7th for the 3 open city council seats.
Okay.
So,
thank you. All right, Marie, I know I will get the mayor's message. Okay. Okay, Alan.
Just the upcoming events. Thanks everyone for bringing those up. Soapbox Derby, we've already gone over this. That's this Saturday at near the mouth of Green Canyon at noon. It's a fun event. Kind of like a push cart derby, but with engine nerds putting it together. Jumping down through here though, we have the conference next week. Walmart. So a few of you will be at Utah League this next week, myself included. If you are not there, if you could attend, if you do get time, on April 21st, I forget what day of the week, that's a Thursday or Friday. Friday at 10 a.m. That's they're calling it the grand opening. So a grand reopening of Walmart. They've modified the entire interior. They've been working on that for months.
They're gonna have like farm animals and
Yep,
stuff, so.
big celebration. So if we do have a council presence there, that would be good, just to come and
Yeah,
let them know how supportive we are of
Roger, can we
Walmart.
count on you to be there?
I shop there every Saturday morning.
Perfect.
go a day
Just
earlier.
switch
One day
to
early,
Friday.
Raj.
hey, early, you got
One
this.
day early. We'll do a Founder's Day service project. We're still looking into details on that. Our Founder's Day, when we looked into it, is April 27th every year. That was the day Ralph Smith's home was dedicated. And so we'll have a little service activity that day. Pickleball fundraising tourney. That's the April 28th through 29th. So if you can make that, sign up for that. That'll be fun.
We
Again,
gotta have representation from the council. I won't be here, but
I'm gone.
Scott, I've seen what you can do on the court.
he's ready.
Is that Friday and Saturday?
Yes. That is-
Buzzy and I will be working on our,
I can't, but I've got my kids flag football junk. that
Okay.
weekend, So.
never mind.
No, I'm disappointed.
Just,
You'll just abandon me anyway.
so Roger will be ready
wow.
for that. And then firefighter
Bold-faced
for a
lies.
day that Chief went over. You get to use the extrication equipment. That's fantastic. Then spring cleanup. We've already gone over that. And we went over Mountain Land Supply. That's their grand opening and Memorial Day. So I'll just
Okay.
go over those events, summer reading
Do we
kickoffs after that.
Anticipate that the cemetery will be thawed by Memorial Day. Have you seen it? Oh my
Is it
gosh.
still under about 6 inches to a
Yeah.
foot of snow?
I went and measured, it's more than 6.
Yeah,
Did you measure?
so we'll just go back up to over a foot,
Yeah.
this
Just
next week, so.
Crazy.
Yes, we anticipate it being caught by
Just
that.
kidding, it was a joke.
But it has snowed 4 out of the last 12 years on Memorial Day. So
Wow.
if you're new to Cache Valley, remember that. Don't plant your
Are you
garden
gonna-
before
are you gonna talk-
Memorial Day if you're not a full-time resident here.
Okay. All right, so let's take a 5-minute recess to go into executive
So
session.
moved.
So moved by Emily, second by Buzzy, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Call the restroom break.
Hey, Alan, what time is that?
I gotta throw this junk away.
Multiple times. Yeah, if you go online, just look on the library's website or the rec website and they'll give you dates and times.
don't know
There's different dates and times for
Will
different,
somebody go eat those cookies, please?
Sorry.
different dates and times for different ages.
Okay.
So it depends on what age group they're in.
Okay.
Rich. They are rich. Need you.